Hello everyone, it's me, the Law Boss here, back again with another video. And I decided, Law Boss, Orc. Let's go back to my roots of the Orcs, eh? Let's do that. So today we're going to take a look at and review not just War Clans, but the Kruel boys, my favourite Orcs in Age of Sigmar. Mainly because they're new models and new model shiny, very nice. Now who are the Kruel boys? The Kruel boys are orcs that are a bit taller. They're not like the big brutes. They're the cunning orcs, the smart orcs who live in the swamps and who use cruel tactics and things like that. And they harness the big monsters of the swamps, like the sludge rakers and the gnash tooths and things like that. All around, they're a lot more intelligent and a bit more sadistic than your standard Ironjaw or Savage Orc. Now, why would you want to collect them as an army? Let's talk about that. Well, for starters, these Orcs are very distinct from the other two. Let's get a standard Gut Ripper, for example. So here we have a Orc Gut Ripper, Kruel Boys Gut Ripper. As you can see, they've got the cool shield here, and if you can look at their aesthetic, they look very swamp-like, which is obviously the look they were going for. Kruel Boys live in swamps. But you can definitely see how they look a lot more skinny. As you can see, that arm's quite skinny for an Orc. And they use spears and they use shields, which you don't really see a lot of Orcs doing. And also they have lots of funny magic from the shamans here. These shamans can summon the swamps with them in game and in lore. And you get to have your big bosses, your breaker bosses, your killer bosses, or your snatcher bosses riding gnash tooths and monsters like that into battle. Also, all their weapons, from the lowliest spear here to the mightiest of just monster, are poisoned. They are poisoned, and as a result, if you roll a 6, you do mortal wound on a 5, which is pretty good. It does mean that I find the army relies a lot on it. So what are some strengths of the Kruel boys? 1, mortal wound output. Every single unit in the army, apart from Hobgrots, but they have their own uses, can put out mortal wounds, which is pretty good, and it's not like it's a single mortal wound. As you can see here, this crossbow boy, his bolt does 2 damage a hit, and each 6 you roll does 2 mortal wounds. And with some buffs, you can get that up to 3 mortal wounds on a 6, or with the shaman here, you can actually get it to have mortal wounds explode on a 5 or a 6. They go instead of normal damage, which can be seen as a balance. It's not like the chosen of the slaves to darkness who can just spit out more damage than potentially a lot of really good gods, but that's what they're good at. Also, despite having a low bravery, a very simple build, they're not going to be breaking. For example, Gut Rippers here have a really measly bravery 5, which, if you're thinking about it, compared to other Orcs, it's not that good. However, you get a killer boss in there, no matter how badly you fail bravery, 1 model runs away. 1 Kruel boy, 1 bolt boy, bolt boys hurt a bit more, 1 Kruel boy, 1 anything, just runs. That's all that runs. Which can make some armies who really can debuff your leadership, like the Kethlar, I don't know the name, it's the Lumineth, crying lady with the cool bowl. She can, holy hell, I've seen firsthand that she can make all your stuff run in one go. But as a result, just 1 goes. So it's a good little counter to morale, breaking to morale easily. However, once he dies, your morale's going to fall apart. But I think at that point, if he's dead, most of your army's dead by that time as well. Another positive Kruel boys have is that they can hit surprisingly hard for their points. For example, a squad of 3 of the bow boys here is 120 points, I believe, or 125. They're reasonably cheap for 6 wounds. Yeah, they are 120 points. So they can hit surprisingly hard for that price, especially with some synergies. Like, I had a tournament on Sunday, hence making this video. My Bolt Boys managed to take down one of the Skaven Flamethrower Man in 1 round of shooting before I even rolled to wound. So their damage can add up for their points. Another great strength they have is lots of monster heroes. You are getting a lot of monstrous rampages, and there are buffs in the battle tome that give you great buffs to your monsters. And the other final big strength I have for them is that they can be played very defensively for an orc army. What I mean by that is objectives can be held down pretty easily with these guys. Due to man over here making only one run away, so getting them off objectives with morale is pretty difficult, especially with a big 20-man Gut Ripper squad, which I did run and ran really well, as well as like having ways to make them unshootable. They're surprisingly durable for their points. And the final strength is their spells. Their spells are very, very good, but I suppose the casters, they're so essential. You take them, and sometimes you need to chuck out a cheeky spell. They're great for chucking out spells. Now, what are some weaknesses? A big weakness is their morale. If you can find a way to kill the big man or the killer bosses and things like that, they will run. Killer bosses are actually the only boss who can make sure they don't run away. So Lumineth and lots of shooting armies like Skaven and Seraphon can make quick work and then just slowly make the rest of the Kruel boys run to morale, which is a pretty big weakness. A second one is, I've just been over price and damage, but price if you can't roll sixes. A squad of Gut Rippers is 180 points for 10-man unit, 5 up save, 2 wounds. Bravery 5. Not great. Hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s. You're relying on the mortal wounds almost. If you don't hit mortals, you're gonna feel the hit. Whereas another army that does mortal wounds quite well, Lumineth, their damage output is still very good. You can still have many units like the Alarith Stone Guard or the Svenari Blade Lords. Comment down below if you play Lumineth and I've got that name mixed up. I apologise in advance. They have ways to output damage. Whereas Kruel boys can have some of their units like the Gut Rippers and some of the lesser heroes like the Killer Boss or the Merc Knob here rely on the mortal wounds, which isn't exactly a bad thing, but you don't want to be relying on one mechanic. That's why you usually run some Hobgrots in there to put out some standard damage. Another, I would say, weakness is that they can be a slightly boring army to build lists for. They're great to play, don't get me wrong, but building lists is kind of the same thing. Gut Rippers, a boss of some kind, a shaman, and what else you can fit in. If you run big yellows, you can run the bows as battle line, and that makes things a bit better, makes the list more versatile and unique. But due to having a lack of battle line choices, like the Iron Jaws who get brutes and hard boys who can make different lists, and boar boys in some factions, it's a little more difficult to make a different list. You're usually running about 20 Kruel boys and 1,000 points. 20 Gut Rippers, sorry. And the final weakness I'd have to say is reliance on aura abilities. That's kind of Death's thing, but these guys play in a way that aura abilities make them hit like a truck. Like with the Sludge Raker monster, you can hit so hard. Like, it is stupid how hard you can hit. But if your opponent has ways to deal with that, like a Seraphon Bastillodon, sway like huge amounts of Lumineth Archers. One Lumineth Archer squad ain't going to put down your monster, but 30 will, which most of the 2,000 point lists have, at least 30 archers. Or even having deep strikes, like the Ideneth. Ideneth are a hard counter to Kruel boys, surprisingly, despite having wards. And also, armies with wards kind of hinder Kruel boys, since the mortal wounds is way be like, boom, squad dead. But then, like, you've got death armies, for example, who are like, okay, so I roll 5 6s, boom, your 6 damage has now gone down to 1 damage. Which can, you know, rolling a 6 isn't exactly the easiest thing to do, but it's annoying when your mortals are the way to get damage out, and an army can kind of deny it. So how would I make a list? For starters, this is casual list, by the way. I'm not talking about tournament lists. I'm not experienced enough to talk about tournament lists. I'm talking about a standard way to start an army. 1, buy extremists. Split it with a mate. And if you want the terrain, sure. If you don't, get the one below it. You get yourself your most useful HQ, the Shaman, right here. 10 Hobgrots, which are very, very underrated units, I will say that. And 10 Gut Rippers. Great start. Then after that, I would invest, when he comes out separately, at the time of the recording, they're not separate, I would purchase a one of the mounted heroes, so probably I would go for a killer boss on Gnashtooth, just because how hard he hits and how versatile he is. Definitely Bolt Boys. You need some Bolt Boys. They are perfect. And just more Gut Rippers. I would say 20 Gut Rippers and 1,000 points is a great way to start. It teaches you how Gut Rippers play, and it also teaches you how to shield your heroes with your not cheap, but not resilient battle line choices. So you know that your Gut Rippers aren't going to be like the Slaves of Darkness Chaos Warriors who just run out and smash. These guys are there to defend and put out a bit of damage. The reason I'd say go more Kruel Boys over Archers, I would say that Kruel Boys are more of a anvil army that puts out damage when they get hurt by the hammer. So as a result, having units like tons of Bolt Boys is not going to teach you how to play an anvil army very well. Not to say they're not full anvil. Bow Boys are definitely hammer. They are one of the best hammer units, ranged hammer units currently, I'd say, just for their versatility, things like that. So yeah, that's my extensive Kruel Boys review, how to get started with them. If you've got any questions down below, put them in the comments, what units to buy, things like that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, like and subscribe. I'm doing another army review for Flesh Eater Courts. So I'm going to get that recorded ASAP and put that out probably next week during the Easter break when I've got some recording time, you know. Gotta get on that grind when I don't have uni work. So yeah, but thanks for watching, everyone. Peace out.